The Ramblin' Man is back, and yes, we're going to do another tier list, and yes, we're going to rate the top or bottom tank duos there are in Overwatch currently, and yes, Ramblin' Man's a song by the Allman Brothers, which are a pretty good band, if I do say so myself. This ranking video will follow the same format as the support version, but in case you're unaware of the criteria, here they are. I'm rating these duos by the skill factor to be effective, so how good are these heroes individually. Some have pop-off potential, which actually is a very big, factor in this one. Then there is how hard it is to play the duo effectively and how well they synergize given their kits. That is what we're dealing with. Oh, and with that, as I'm looking at how impactful or strong the tank duo is, part of the criteria takes into account the effort required to pull off, right? Like I mentioned. And that means this tier list is going to be around, 3000 SR diamond level. Just to make that more clear. Not top 500, not owl, something everyone should relate to. Okay, let's get right into it. Here is the tier list, and you know what, I kind of did lie. There is one slight change from the support to the tank one, and it's just this avoid category right here. It's just simple, one word, 3 exclamation points, no emotion attached whatsoever. But I think personally, if you select these tank duos, you are classified as throwing. So here they are. Here are the first two at least. These two comps in particular, like if you're looking at D.Va, D.Va is an enabler tank. So she needs some sort of main tank so that she can enable them. That's how her synergy works. That's how she synergizes with other tanks, I should say. So when you pair that with Zarya, who's also an enabler tank, who are you enabling? I mean, they're both just kind of bad by themselves. The only reason why you might ever see this comp is because Roadhog is picked and that Roadhog is popping off. And then you got some sort of D.Va that is just protecting the backline from like a dive. But that's all I could see. Following that are these Orisa comps who, Orisa, I just don't trust her shield. She has a shield, so those guys are definitely better than the Roadhog and Zarya variants for sure. But the paper shield is just not going to save anyone. That just one Hanzo Storm Arrow ability can completely deny or break Orisa shield. So a 10-second cooldown for, I believe, like a 6-second cooldown, not worth. And the problem you're kind of facing here is that these tanks are all self-sustainable, but they're not good for team sustain. I hope that's plain and clear. Avoid these at all costs. Next up, the Please No Sir. Also avoid, if you can. Sometimes, you might run into those situations where it's not as possible or as feasible, but whatever. Here they are. So you got these tanks here. Boom, shaboom. It's crazy with just one extra tank. How that just, actually, I need that one back. Give that back. That's spoiling too much. It's crazy with one extra tank how the list actually grows so much because there's just so many more variants when you just add that one extra tank. There's 8 tanks, by the way, and 7 supports. So there's your reference there. Spent a lot of time doing this art, so if you feel like it, you can subscribe. I put a lot of effort into this. Okay. Now, just like the other tier, you kind of run into the same situation. These guys are just very self-sustainable, but they're not great at team sustain. Sigma Shield and Sigma's kit in general is way better than Orisa's or Hog's, right? This is why we're doing tank duos, because it's all dependent on the composition, but just looking individually, Sigma is just a way better hero, so that's why he's in the Please No Sir category and not the avoid. But there's just no synergy whatsoever. You still have 2-3 enabler tanks in some ways, where Sigma is an enabler tank. He kind of synergizes with everyone, but he's not going to be the main force. He's not going to be the main tank. He can certainly hold his own, but there's just a bunch of factors when considering this, and there are definitely way, 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 way better tank duos in the game. And then giving my 2 cents on Zarya, I don't think she's probably the worst tank in the game. And I say probably because there are some great synergies if you can pull them off, but in the grand scheme of things, when you look at all of them, she's likely the worst tank there is in the game, mainly because she's a brawl hero who is short-ranged and can be easily poked out. And the current meta is poke. Plus, I don't think her abilities are too much of an impact ability, unlike Roadhog's hook, who can just instantly turn a fight. Zarya's bubbles are defensive, so you can't just have that, throw the ability and it instantly gets value. It's good for protecting. I mean, in the cases where if you bubble your Doomfist or your Monkey going in, and I mean, we're going to get to double bubble a little bit later, but that still doesn't yield inherent value that could just save someone, and you just kind of hope that your teammates are able to follow up on something. You just set them up. But yeah, I don't think she's the greatest tank in the game. Ryan Monkey, there's just no synergy between these tanks. You're going with Brawl and Dive. If you want any sort of like semblance of synergy, you want Brawl with Poke, or some sort of Poke like a Sigma with Dive. But Dive and Brawl can never exist together. I do put this one a little bit higher, and this one can work if you have some sort of like random comp where you have Bastion, Reinhardt, Bap, plus you've got Reaper or Doomfist, and then you got Ball. So it's like a very chaotic comp where it's like you got a bunker, and then you've got like some sort of disruption going on. So in 3000 SR or diamond level, you know, you could show it off here and there, but there's, yeah, again, way better comps out there. And then these Winston comps, again, same issue. You've got Dive plus some sort of random comps. Like this one can work. You technically have a double shield. With this one, technically have a double shield, but Orisa's too stationary, Winston's too active. They will never synergize together. Sigma can work if he's off angling with some other people, but Winston I don't think is a great solo tank. In terms of like Winston will get in, but he has to wait 5 seconds to get out. Whereas Ball, he can disrupt and still either fireball through or kind of roll away. Because I mean, either way, he's the fastest here in the game. I believe his roll is faster than Soldier Sprint. Anyways, yeah, these tiers, they're just kind of for goose and gaps. Just don't pick them whatsoever. But as we move on to the next tier here, they can work. These are comps that actual pro players use. And this is the double bubble, except it's with Wrecking Ball this time. What would you call it? Like double sphere, because, you know, you got the sphere encasing the ball and ball's the sphere. The double ball, maybe. It's the same motive, but I think it's just going to be way harder because, again, no shield. And teamwork required is going to be way greater. Also, you need to be, like, in order to play Wrecking Ball effectively, you have to be pretty decent at his movement and know where to set up and scout in his entire playstyle, which is going to be completely unique to all the other tanks here. If not that, you can at least agree different than all the main tanks. And the Orisa Ball can work, and it really comes down to the team and how well they play around that comp, because it's almost like Zen and Brig, there's just not enough healing, so your players have to play a little more passive. But I can see this tank comp working really well, just because these are the two best setup heroes there are in the entire tank role, whatever game. Wrecking Ball's the best setup hero, and Orisa's a close second with Halt. I doubt you would get any like kind of like combos with Halt, because it's got nerfed pretty hard for the casual player base. But in theory, that thing is still pretty deadly. And if not that, it's still like it's a CC. It's a form of CC that can temporarily stun enemies, pull enemies towards you, so if you want to secure a kill yourself, or even push enemies back. It's actually a very underrated CC ability. Not in terms of setting up, but in terms of like, you know, just like booping people back or keeping people close to you, like a Roadhog hook, but light version. The other comp you might have seen in pro leagues is the Orisa Hog. You know, it's not in its greatest condition in terms of use because, well, Orisa's Halt has just gone nerfed to the ground. I say nerfed to the ground, but it's just not as consistent, and that's a really key word here, because consistency usually means climbing. So, I mean, it can work if you got a friend online. You can just hook these guys up, and you count 3, 2, 1, Halt. Boom, you hook, free kill. If not that, you still got Roadhog there that is going to be like, that can just pop off. I'm not quite sure, but I believe I saw this one in pro play once. Maybe not for long, but I'm pretty sure I did see that. That's not the one I want. Actually, no, that is the one I want. But yeah, these two, it just really comes down to the pop-off potential of Roadhog. This one I find is just a little bit better in ranked, because you still have the solo potential from Wrecking Ball. Zarya is just going to be a little bit, it's basically, do you want more offensive or defense with Zarya? But it's like very minuscule. You still are lacking a shield, so in ranked that might be an issue. All right, now the quite all right category. So the first one that we'll be looking at is going to be this Ryan Orisa here. Not a bad double shield combo. You got Reinhardt with the best shield in the game, and then you got Orisa with the worst shield in the game, but at least it's still a shield. It's just, Reinhardt's just not going to be enabled, but in terms of what it can do, where both tanks are fairly survivable, Reinhardt can, you know, with enough enableization, if that's a word, from like his other members of the team, it could work. If Orisa kind of plays for main and Reinhardt plays a little bit off angled, where you create two angles, that's how this comp could work pretty well, because you got Orisa poking, then you've got Reinhardt covering another lane for his other DPS members. So just creating a comp in my head, if you got Orisa, Ashe, Ana, and the other support mixed with Reinhardt and a Reaper or Mei, you got two Brawl heroes working together, and then you've got the poke heroes who are just going to spray fire at them, and the Reinhardt and whoever else is accompanying him can just wreak havoc up close in front while contesting the payload. And that's going to be the exact same strategy for this comp too. Another poke hero, but way better kit. I mean, there's not really much more to say because they're pretty much the exact same. There has been times, though, if I'm recalling, that a Sigma can keep up with a Reinhardt more easily and kind of be a mobile shield in front of Reinhardt. If you remember old Symmetra, how she can project a shield as she had her auto-lock beam, if you remember those times, you could probably look up a YouTube video to get some sort of reference, or I'll actually post one up right now. Back in those days, you could just have that shield walking right in front of you, so you're just creating your own space, and I feel like Sigma, you can kind of do that with Reinhardt. As Reinhardt's swinging away, Sigma can just put a shield in front of some of the poke heroes. That way he's not taking as much damage as he's trying to swing around. But this is a legit comp, or more so than the other ones. They don't have a great synergy, mainly because Reinhardt isn't enabled and he kind of requires someone or something to enable him. Because after all, he is a guy he's just a German with a hammer, right? And all the other heroes either have mobility and or range. But I am a fan of his shield. I think if he just plays defensive and that's all he is, he's just a tank there being a shield, and his team sits behind him, he's got the best shield in the game technically. Where this comp works, though, is that Roadhog is a brawl type hero, so they do work in that sense. It's just you're not enabling Reinhardt, like I mentioned. Roadhog is just there to pop off if he wants to, get some flanks, but also be that frontline presence, being an extra damage threat because he does have a very powerful weapon. So in a Brawl v Brawl, would you rather have, I don't know, a Rein Zarya or a Reinhardt Hog? I mean, they're both fairly close. It's just, would you rather have more defensive or offensive? Unless that Zarya does get more charge, then I would probably have the Rein Zarya. Moving away from that, we've got Balls Feet, comp used by Shanghai Dragons, where you've got Void sitting on an off angle with Lip and Li Jie gone, and they're just going to be shooting from a range. I think Izayaki, if he ever played Ana, was also playing with them. And then it was Fleta or Lip, depending on who was a tracer there, plus Fate Wrecking Ball, and that's how that comp worked, because you got some dive, but also you've got some sort of frontline established with Sigma, who's allowing their team to push forward. And Sigma, I think, is better in that case because you can have a shield in front of you, a visible barrier, rather than D.Va's defense matrix, which only lasts 2 seconds. And I mean, Sigma has a mini version of that anyways, plus a stun and better damage potential, so I can see why they used it. But there is this comp after all. This is great synergy now. Basically, what that means is that this comp scales up in value if you have better synergy. Not necessarily the easiest, but they're safe picks if you just are comfort with these heroes. Like if I'm a Wrecking Ball main, and then if someone was played D.Va mainly as well, right? So if you were just comfortable with these guys would work really well because they have great synergy. Ball goes in, slams, disrupts, D.Va's there to defense matrix him, or as Ball is doing his stuff and the enemy team decides to counter dive, then D.Va's there to help peel for their team and supports. And that puts us to the next one, which is Winston D.Va. This one I think is way better because it's also way easier. You got a shield too, which a lot of people can understand how the shield works, and I think that goes a long way in the mid-table ranks. I don't know why people don't run dive as much as they do. Like dive, if you understand the concept of dive, I feel like it's just that would overrun the meta. Because currently it's like Hog and Sigma who are or Hog and Ball who are very individualistic. But I think dive, if you just understand the concept that your entire team just goes and selects a target, you kill that target, and then you kind of just like snowball from there, I think people would just climb that much faster, that much easier. Everything I said about the D.Va Ball also goes with Winston Ball. Winston jumps in, D.Va helps protect him and enable him to go in. Then he establishes space with his shield and Tesla gun to cleave through enemies. And that causes a lot of chaos and pressure on the enemy team, because when Winston's using his Tesla gun onto multiple enemies, if they have a Ana or like just a lack of AoE healing, then I mean that's going to be some trouble there. And then the good old double bubble, a new comp that has just arrived. I'm not so much a fan of this because I'm more used to a classic dive, but double bubble, that works. I feel like it's just hard with Zarya how she is, and Poke being the pro dominant pick for heroes. Her lack of range, her lack of mobility too, just really hinders her in this current stage of the game. But with double bubble, that basically ensures Winston gets in, also generates energy for Zarya, and when Zarya is at high energy, then she becomes a real threat. Then she doesn't really have to go too much defensive mode. Like she kind of like hips around her supports if she needs to, but she could just go and pop off, and you almost have 3 DPS there. I was actually just thinking, I had like a Twitter conversation with one person. Go follow my Twitter, by the way. And I think what I was mentioning is that the DPS weren't like as powerful as tanks or supports, and I was like, yeah, that's fine. But then I pointed out the fact that Shanghai would just turn fights even if both supports were gone, just because their DPS popped off and there was like a half HP tank alive. So that's kind of what I was going with in this example here, where it doesn't matter if you have supports or not. If you have enough damage and you could just roll through opponents, and you don't, like, I mean, you have to do it quick, but definitely doable if you just outdamage the opponent and they can't heal it up. And then there's the good old classic Rein Zarya. Both Brawl heroes both have the same goal and same similar playstyle. You roll right on in. Reinhardt has a shield up. He gets enabled by his Zarya bubble. He starts swinging in. People start shooting the Reinhardt's bubble. Zarya gets energy. Then Zarya goes in front of Reinhardt, starts shooting a bit. And I mean, it's just like this constant cycle of Zarya getting energy, being a major threat, while Reinhardt's just kind of like slowly moving the line and their territory. That's how the good old days worked, at least. No, but I still think this has some sort of validation. I don't see Rein Zarya enough. I feel like, just like how I was talking about the dive, and how I feel like, you know, if someone had an idea of how dive work, teams would start climbing immediately. And I think that's the same thing with Rein Zarya. And I think that can still warrant a lot of value, because I mean, if you have the tempo, especially with Lucio's speed boost, if you have the tempo and you keep pushing forward, you can just overwhelm opponents. I can see it though if Poke, you know, just becomes too overburdening, or a Doomfist in the backline, so you expend your one bubble to try and protect your support, then you don't have that bubble for Reinhardt. That's when it gets kind of complicated. But I can't take away the fact that these guys are a great synergy, and I still think they're a viable pick. And the moment we've all been waiting for, the best must-play heroes, here they are right now. You got Rein D.Va. This is a superior comp to Rein Zarya, and it's because D.Va is just going to be more versatile, able to peel while also helping and enable Reinhardt as he's trying to walk forward and swing. So while Zarya gets energy and benefits off of Reinhardt when he starts swinging in, that bubble is on a cooldown, versus D.Va's defense matrix, which you can use at practically any time. Otherwise, exactly the same. D.Va's a little more versatile in this instance, so that's why she's better. And if you have the concept of rushdown, then this comp is just going to be one of the best. If you want a dive comp, this is the best dive comp currently. Maybe even in top 500 too, like in those higher ranks, this is still a very good strategy, because ball goes in to disrupt. All the enemies dump all their resources into ball trying to kill him. Winston goes in now that there's less resources, so he's not going to get blown up. He's got a shield there to create some space, or, you know, contest the space, give some protection to whoever's trying to help him out. And on top of that, it's the concept of dive. Definitely got a higher potency than this comp, I think. I feel like dive is just way better than poke, but poke, just how the stats are, drastically working in his favor. And this doesn't even require Sigma to play at his highest level. Like, if you're playing at diamond level, all you have to do is play with Orisa, and if you know the general basics of how to, you know, take specific angles and cover different lanes, so that you're not just throwing your shield out into the middle of nowhere where it's getting no value. You want to have your shields in areas where your DPS are enabled and allow you to peek different angles or whatever the case may be. But there's just not much thinking involved with this comp when you just have two really good shields and both tanks can sustain themselves very well. And you're still not losing very much in the setup potential that you would have with Ball, Orisa, second best setup hero in the game. Then I don't mention the ultimates too much because all of them are very, very good, in my opinion, other than Reinhardt's Shatter. Then you've got Winston's Primal. Oh, and Diva's ultimate isn't that great. It gives her a second life and it makes her gives her more uptime. But Supercharger, one of the best win rate ultimates in the game because it allows her entire team to get like a 50% damage boost. Are you insane? If your entire team can have a 50% damage boost? Sigma's ultimate is better than Graviton Surge, Zarya's ultimate, because it picks up enemies and does 50% of damage no matter what. 50% of enemies' health damage, I should say. Now, if you have a keen eye and you notice something a little bit off, I do have one more tank duo here. I'm not quite sure to put it. I know it's not great synergy. I know it fits within the quite alright, but is it best must play? If I were to rate this, I would put it quite alright. But how the meta is, you know, like it's at the top. Don't be fooled, by the way. The moral of the story here with these three tiers, don't be fooled by the quite all right. These are all viable tank options. Tanks are so powerful in this game that you can kind of just get away with anything. I mean, maybe not with these types of comps or the Please No Sir, but you know, there's some leniency to how their play is because their health and their defensive capabilities gives them more freedom. But that's going to do it all for me here. Thank you all so much for watching. I won't be doing a DPS one because, well, there's like 16 DPS. So if I was going to be doing a DPS duos, what are the best DPS duos? I would have to cut out so many of them. It was already challenging when there was 8 tanks jumping up or 7 supports jumping up to 8 tanks. But yeah, I might do a DPS tier list sometime in the future. And in terms of the, you know, how obsolete this is, I think if you want to start grinding, these are the things that you got to start doing before Overwatch 2 comes out. So if you're motivated and determined to do so, I mean, stick to these guys, stick to these best comps. I don't think the meta is going to be shifting too much here on out. I don't think there's going to be too many balance patches coming out unless they're wacky like the last one here. So give yourself the best chance, try and rank up, and leave on a high note until Overwatch 2. But yeah, until then, see you guys later. Peace out.